Okay, I think that worked out as a great coincidence because the timing was such that I hope I can fit this on Gab TV, and it's the beginning of part 2. So I took the opportunity to learn a little bit more about Captain Phillips, who was rescued by 4 SEALs. And before I continue, I want to acknowledge a very special woman who used to be Miss Kenya, who sits on a horse. Her name's Roshanara Love. Really, it's Roshanara Ibrahim. She must know the Kikuyu tribe. That's the connection to Hopi. She's a QHHT guide. And this white man is a part of a great white brotherhood that knows how to win with the forces needed. As sure as there's a galactic federation, this man is a walking piece of it on the surface. So let me be careful and show you this portion of the presentation. So this is Captain Phillips. This was done not too long ago. 12 October. Just recounting his bad day experience. Mass Maritime Academy, April 8th, 2009. Small band of Somali pirates swung a ladder from their skiff onto the boat. A U.S. flag container ship ferrying food aid to refugees in Kenya. It was the first hijacking of a U.S. ship in more than 200 years. He became the center of an extraordinary international drama when he was taken hostages by the pirates who attacked the ship. The incident held the world's attention for 5 days, ending in a climactic rescue by the U.S. Navy SEALs from the USS Bainbridge. Phillips wrote A Captain's Duty to Tell a Story. Bestseller. Tom Hanks. Oh, shit. Oh, ugh. 79 grad. Academy grad 79. I was 81. Experience. Testified. In a 99 way, he qualified to sail as a captain. Yes. 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 God bless the man. Alright. We're good. Stand by. Okay, he may have spoken about him or he'll speak about him again, but we're picking up on our Delta man. Here's the brief. To continue, the man is making his way. The CCT man is recommending a Djibouti thing to drive by and recon. And he said it made sense, we could do it. So he's speaking about what happens next.
But so they're out there just burning holes in the ocean, trying to deter Somali pirates from doing what ended up happening a year later. And so he's like, why don't we call that Destroyer? It was
a Destroyer.
And Brady's like,
he happens to know when the dev guy.
Like, we'll call him in the blind and be
Blue,
like, hey,
the blind.
you got U.S. forces on the ground. He's like,
they
I can
lay it in
targets.
8 digits, baby.
They got deck guns. Like, if we get in trouble, we got some naval gunfire.
Fucking flying VW.
Great. And they're like, well, how are we going to do this?
18 millimeter.
I think we just basically need to get there with our dudes. We need to set up a patrol base between the town and wherever we think they are, because we don't have an exact on their location. I said, it's 110 degrees outside. Let's bring the aircraft down so they can hear it. Let's bring the boat in over the horizon line so they can see a U.S. naval warship off the coast and set up a patrol base on a small arms range, but where they can see us. Let's just wait them out. I'm like, there's nowhere to go. They're thousands of miles in any direction from the next town, through the desert. It's 110 degrees outside.
These guys are native to the area.
I go, they're going to start being heat casualties soon. Like, they weren't prepared to be here. We are. We have the ability to access the
Salt
town,
water.
whatever, and we've got some friendlies.
Take a
Somali
sip of your
friends with us.
canteen,
We'll just wait it out.
Mahood.
So we pull in. Everybody's good with it. The three of us feel good about it. You know, it's basically the three of us and 8 or 10 Somalis. So to our knowledge, there's 18 to 20 some of them, and they got bell feds and a bunch of other stuff. We didn't have shit. We had rifles and pistols, and a handful of Somalis with AKs. We did have 2 machine guns, but not a ton of ammunition for either one of those that the Somalis brought with them. And so we set up our little hasty patrol base, and we're waiting. And in the early part of the day, it's hot, and we're dying. And Bashir's like,
shit,
we need to go get these guys. And we're like, nah, man, we can't do it. He's the only one speaking English. He's like, no, we need to go do it. And he keeps pressing. And, like, we can't figure out why. He keeps pressing. Still can't. Like, Bashir, just calm down, man. And what it was is he didn't understand. He's like, he can see the boat, too. We didn't say anything about it. He can hear the plane. And he's like, at one point, he's like, why don't you just drop a bomb on them? And we're like, 1, we don't know exactly where they are. We have no way of geolocating them. 2, the battery died on their phone. They're not talking anymore. So we don't know if they moved. We don't know what's going on. We just know they're in those hills somewhere. We're like, 3, like, we haven't worked a whole lot together. So, like, this is a dangerous thing. Like, we just need to wait these guys out. Well, he loses patience. So it's probably 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And he comes over to the 3 of us. So the Somalis are kind of spread around, just doing their thing, chewing cod. And the 3 of us are, like, just trying to figure out, like, what's next. Because we can't just shoot naval gunfire. Like, we basically have to get in an engagement to do anything.
This video,
and we're in a country we're not supposed to be in. We got no air assets, no gas, no nothing. So Bashir walks over and he goes,
it's on YouTube.
I'm taking my guys and I'm going over the hill to kill them. And I go, what? And he goes,
Here
you can come with me if you want, unless you're scared. He punked us. Literally punked us.
Holy shit.
And so I'm like, all right, Bashir, straight face. I'm like, I get it. Like, we need to do something. I understand. I go, can you give us a minute? Let us talk and come up with a little hasty plan here, and I'll be right back with you. He says, fine. So he walks off to his guys, and I turn around where he can't see me, and I start laughing. And Phil and Brady are like, what are you laughing at? And I go, you guys aren't going to believe this. I was like, but when you go through Robin Sage in the Q course, you have a G Chief, a guerrilla warlord guy that's pretending that's his thing, and he has his little G's. And I go, and they act like complete assholes, and they do things like this. And when you're in the Q course, you're like, no way this ever happens. And here we are in Somalia, and this former warlord is going, are you too scared to come with me? And so, we had a quick conversation, and I'm like, look, we're going to lose the faith of these guys. These are our only security. We're a 5-hour flight, a really long swim to a boat. We got no assets, no nothing. Like, we can't lose this. Like, we need to keep these guys on our side. We didn't trust them to begin with. We hadn't worked with them a whole bunch, and it wasn't a very comfortable feeling. It wasn't like we had been training these guys and working with them for months on end. Yeah. Supposedly the CIA had trained them for the last few years, but I can tell you what we saw was not a highly trained force. So anyway, we ended up pulling Bashir in, and we explained to him that basically we're going to do a movement to contact, bounding Overwatch.
I know them.
And we ended up putting the gun teams on either side, not so much because of the tactics, but because we were afraid about having them too close to us and what would happen. So we had a gun team to our right flank, a gun team to our left flank. The 3 of us were staying together no matter what. And then we had a couple other Somalis and Bashir with us. And so we start this bounding overwatch. We'd move a gun team up, move another gun team up, and so on and so on. And so we crest over the first hill. About the time we get over the first hill, headed up to the larger ridge, we hear a bell fed open up. And it's to the north of us. And they're shooting at the guys on our right flank. Can't tell exactly where it's coming from, but we can tell that that's the only ones that they can see. So we continue to move up to gain the high ground on this ridge line to try to get a better fix on their position. About the time we get up there, we realize where they are, not too far from our position. We engage those guys, but then all hell breaks loose. So in the draw behind the ridge that we're on, we're taking heavy fire. Ineffective, we're behind like this ridge of rocks. So we've got some cover, it's good cover, but man.
Alright, I take a swig of coffee. Let's go.
They are just hammering the ridge line. So the impression is that this is exactly what we thought. This is a lot of guys.
You can't always plan when you'll need a gun. Rational gun owners carry
This is bullshit. Okay, so this is his commercial. I thought I'd play this. This is like in the movie. So we kind of get a look at him. I'm sure this is great stuff. And he looks like he's in great shape. I mean, just look at his gait. And he's proud of what he does. Elite.
So we got a couple of dudes that have been dealt with on the north side, but they have shot and wounded.
So I know a guy named John Cully, who was a 20th SF group guy, met John Wayne, took his guys for reserve duty. They went down to warm water to do parachute jumps, wet parachute jumps out of the Chicago area. And he was a deep reserve guy. And he got into the Black Army of Northern Virginia Aviation, hunting down Escobar and all that stuff. Way up there, man. John Boy. John Cully. Cobra pilot, Vietnam. My hero, my racquetball arm punch man. John Cully sold Merc survival tabs. And that's not to disdain what this man is doing. I think his name is Chris Van... Chris Van... Last four letters start with an S. But obviously he is an ascended master in the making. And let's continue to listen to him.
Both of the guys in our gun team to our right flank. About the time that we're trying to figure out exactly where they are below us. Now, we got no grenades. We've got nothing. Like I said, small arms. About that time, bullets come. I'm here, Phil and Bashir over there. The two Somalis are a little bit further to his left, and then the gun team is beyond them. And then Brady's on my right, and then the wounded gun team on his right. And so rounds come cracking right across the front of me, the cover I'm standing at, like skip off the rock right in front of me. And Brady and I both look left at the same time, and dudes are maneuvering up the ridge line. There's 4 or 5 guys that are coming up the ridge.
Pay attention
and so
to this.
All this in a split second. That first like barrage of fire, Bashir is like just standing out in the open, gets shot 3 times. So Phil grabs him, pulls him down behind cover, and is like packing like Kerlex and gauze in his holes. Brady and I both turn, and I move to a piece of cover between me and the guys on the left flank. So yelled at Brady, hey, move to me, move to me, move to me. Suppressive fire, Brady moves to me. Now it's the 2 of us. The 2 Somalis that are up here with us are now cowering down behind the rocks and terrified, like not returning fire, not anything. And I think, well, at least they're not going to shoot us, right? They're there. The gun team between us and them are now in a shootout with the guys. So half the guys that are coming up the ridge are shooting at the 2 Somalis on our left flank. The other half of the guys are shooting at Brady and I. It's kind of whack-a-mole. Brady and I ended up shooting rounds between a bunch of rocks and just ricocheting a bunch of rounds into the dudes, and they would peel out to one side or the other. And, we kind of dealt with it. But anyway, in the midst of that portion, we ended up dealing with all those guys, but they had wounded not just Bashir, but the other 2 guys. So now I've got 5 wounded Somalis, including the only one that speaks English, and the 3 of us. So everybody on the ridge.
Where's Larry Costa when you need him?
Worried about. It doesn't seem to be. We have good visibility that we've got any more threat coming up the ridge line.
Worldwide language.
But we're still getting.
He was on the mission to go get the clone.
And I'm like, I don't.
Not him,
like,
but his
guy. I don't know
guys.
what our move is from here. Like the 3 of us were like, we
Contractor.
don't have a lot of options here. And Brady goes, how about some naval gunfire?
Native speaker.
And so, the 3 of us kind of looked at each other and we're like, all right, yeah, we can do this. Like, let's just they're all in one spot. Let's hammer this draw. We had already talked to them, pre-planned targets. So the boat was ready and aware, and they were jacked up. Like, they didn't even know we were there.
I'll bet they were fucking pumped.
We called them in the blind. It was a really funny, 20-minute
draw is like low ground. It's
gotten into that position.
A ditch.
And you could hear them in the background.
Big ditch.
Like they knew they were getting ready to get some.
Like a creek can be in a draw.
Brady is on the horn with the boat.
So it's good
I
protection
have a
with
handheld
banks.
satellite radio because I'm like, we can't do this
It's
unless I call
it's a
troops in
natural
contact over the
trench.
SATCOM. Like, they gotta know we've been engaged, that we didn't just shoot naval gunfire into a country we're not supposed to be into. And so, so Brady's talking to the boat, calling in naval gunfire. I'm calling in troops in contact over SATCOM. I said that we had wounded, but I didn't say who, because I was worried that if it was just Somalis, we weren't going to get the same reaction, which I don't know if that was the right call or the wrong call, but it was the call that I made at the time. And so we ended up grabbing up as many of the Somalis as we could, and we started
he's
pulling
not
back
leaving
off the
nobody
ridge.
behind.
Right about that time, rounds come overhead. I think Brady had him shoot like 24 rounds or something off the deck guns into the valley and walked them up and down
Like
as we
they're
pulled back
leaving.
off the ridge. So we get back down to our patrol base. There's no more fire coming from the hills other than, the smoke and everything that's left, dust from the naval barrage. We get in the patrol
God
base.
bless the Rainbow Warriors.
Phil
3 of them.
basically, like almost on his own. I think I helped him with like the first 2 guys treating casualties, but Phil basically patched up
The
all the
coalition.
dudes by himself.
Phil.
I was talking to
Phil
Basaso. Basaso was talking to Djibouti. Djibouti was talking to Nairobi.
Blue Force
Nairobi
tracking.
was talking to
Throw 'em away.
JSOC Bragg. JSOC Bragg was talking to
Suffer the
SecDef and
consequences.
DC. So this was like, damn, like it was wild. And again, they asked me twice about casualties, and I said, we have a casualty collection point. We're treating our wounded. We're unsure of their status at this moment, but that we were working on it and we were all right, but we needed Casevac, and we needed it now because they were a 5-hour flight away.
Woo!
So we patch up the Somalis. It's getting dark now. There's no sounds, there's no fire, there's no nothing coming out of the hills, and basically we don't have the ability to like go over there at night. We've got no workforce anymore. We had 3 Somalis, I think,
Man, you gotta burn some hash.
down in the village
Let them
that
know you want peace.
had weapons, but they weren't really a part of what
It's
we were
like
doing.
Bastona
So we
Christmas.
had those 3 stay in the patrol base.
Daylight
We commandeered a couple of
coming, we
vehicles
want
from
to
town.
go
We loaded up the
home.
wounded, and we drove the 10 minutes down the road to get to the dirt airfield. However many hours later, they landed a CASA on the dirt airfield, and our guys from Djibouti got out, along with a bunch of PJs that they brought from Djibouti to secure the wounded and treat those guys.
Wow,
They
that's
got
that
off with
point.
us, so
Right
ammo
at the Aden
resupply,
Sea.
brought some other stuff with them. The
5
bird
hours,
left
I
with the
guess,
wounded to fly back to Djibouti, and then the 5 of us went back to the patrol base and basically just camped out for the night until the sun came up.
Man.
We didn't tell anybody that there weren't any Americans on the plane, the wounded. So when it showed up in Djibouti, it was PJs with a bunch of wounded Somalis, and no one in Djibouti was even aware of the operation.
PJs are Air Force
So
guys.
they ended up in the hospital
airfield
there
survey
on
guys.
the naval base in Djibouti.
Jump.
And all those guys ended up living, which is cool. But yeah, we kind of surprised them with that one. So the sun comes up the next morning. We ended
you
up going
saw that
over the
article
hill
about-
as a more
I guess the following
capable
June.
force, because now there were 6 of us. And we had one local that we had recruited out of town that spoke enough English that we could at least communicate with the Somalis that were with us. They weren't really willing to go over the hill again because they had witnessed what happened the day before. But they eventually and reluctantly came with us, and we thought at least they could help us with recovery of some of the bodies if it was 2 and 3 or whatever. Yeah, no, they're Arabs, and they weren't touching a body after that much time later. So we ended up moving through the area.
Bin Laden got buried at sea. Nobody
dead.
touched him.
We had a guy that we thought for sure
Tim
was Harun Fazul.
Osman. Insert
Looked
an
just like
A.
him. I mean,
Also,
same
Mom,
skin tone and
Yusuf, my
had a pair
bush.
of glasses. Like, it was a lot of
My
similarities that we thought it was him.
Sure.
Nobody that looked like Nabhan.
Where we going?
And the rest of the
Redskin
guys
game.
were like a who's who of bad guys from around the globe.
Call
like
me Tim.
2 guys with British passports.
Timmy.
Like legit British passports.
Oh, shit.
A Yemeni,
Tim
a
Osman.
Syrian. Like, it was this random collection of it was
Number
exactly
one.
what we thought it was.
Point that finger at you.
And so we're on the radio.
Bill
We've
didn't
got a
hit him.
possible for
Billy didn't hit him.
for,
He let him get
Fazul,
away.
whatever his
He
call
could
sign was
have
at
dropped the
time.
bomb on him. Bill
And they're
Clinton.
like, all right, well,
He's
we're
such a
going to
kind
fly
man.
in
There
an
might have been
SSC team
civilians
to
involved.
do DNA
I can't
testing
eat
and
them.
confirm.
They're too far
We need
away.
you to take them up to the site. And we're like, we're not doing that. And they're like,
23
why wouldn't you
times. I
do
like
that?
my
I'm like, I'm not taking an
Aborigines.
FBI team that's never
I
been in
like
combat,
the
never been
Aspen who
trained into the
told
hills of
Garrison,
northern
yeah, I
Somalia
agree with
where
you, Billy.
I don't know how many
You
guys
just
are
say
still
B
running
triple
around
C
out
your
here. Like,
flatulence
I
and
had no
watch
way
them
to confirm or
helicopters
deny if
drop.
we'd gotten them all. I
Bah!
knew we had a bunch of bodies, but I had no
We'll
way
have
of knowing
CNN
if we had
crawl
gotten
up.
everybody.
And
And so there's some
CNN
back and forth
report
on the
out.
radio. What we
Brookings
ended
in
up agreeing
between.
on was we
Green
bagged up
kids.
the guy that we thought was Harim Fazul,
Frank
and
Phillips.
we carried him off the mountain, threw him in the back of a truck, and then
He
drove
ain't
him
no
down to the
pirate.
airfield. So when they landed, all
But
they
he
did was
knows
get
Al
off the
Sisi.
plane and deal with the
Personally.
possible. And
Frank
then we
Phillips
could give them
knows
all the
about
other intel we collected. So
the big boy,
passports,
Al
and
Sisi.
money, and
The reptile.
they had laptops,
President
and all
of
kinds of stuff.
Egypt.
Smorgasbord of intel. It was a decent
2023,
hit in
Cop
that respect.
27.
But yeah,
Got a
so
son
the
named
FBI guys
Mahmoud.
get off the plane.
He's up there.
I unzip the body bag for him. You know, they peel it back. It took him 2 seconds. They grabbed him, they rolled him up on his side, they pulled his shirt up, and he had no scar, and they said, it's not him.
No.
We were like, what? And they're like, it's not him. I'm like, how do you know that fast that it's not him? You didn't do anything.
Somebody.
And they go, yeah, Harim Fazul had appendicitis, he had his appendix taken out in whatever year, he's got no scar where his appendix was removed.
All right.
And we're like, damn, that
All
quick,
right.
they just shut like,
Let's just go to good guys.
You know,
Beeper went
we're all
off.
proud of ourselves.
Fucking index.
So we're bummed out. We're like, all
Shit,
right, well,
Maxwell,
let's wrap
smart.
it up.
Give me
like,
a
the rest
shoe.
of those bodies, we got plenty of intel. Like, it is what it is.
Yep.
Like, the Somalis are all still alive. They're back in Djibouti. Let's get out of here. So
Yeah.
we loaded up and flew back to Djibouti.
Yeah.
You know, there's a little bit of a reception there from the handful of people that did know where we were. We get to the hangar, and, you know, all three of us are just covered in blood. You know, not our own, but I've got cuts all up and down my arms from the sharp, corally rocks that we've been moving around on the ridge line. And then, you know, the wounded
All right,
Somalis,
stand by.
all
I'm
that
going to
stuff.
pause it.
The admiral that is in charge of the base needs whoever was just involved in whatever went down to come brief him. And we're like, okay. Staffos or secretary or somebody's like, you know, the admiral's back here, blah, blah, blah. So they take us in this little conference room. And he's sitting at the head of the table. He's standing up, and a couple of his staff officers, you know, junior guys are in the room with him. And he's like, gentlemen, how you doing? Come on in and have a seat. And so we go in and we sit down. And he's like, mind you, the whole way over there, we're like, we're screwed. Like, this dude is going to flip. He's like, you guys have had a pretty wild, rough 24 hours, huh? And we were like, yes, sir. Like, just waiting. And he's like, so tell me the story. Like, how did you get there? And we're like, well, and we kind of gave him the brief. Like, we've been doing some targeting. We've been working on this. We've been in and out of Somalia a number of times. We had an opportunity at some really important folks and to disrupt the network in a substantial way. And we just felt like it was an opportunity that we needed to take. And he's like, well, you know, had you been planning this? And we were like, nope. It was pretty much a hasty decision that was supported by 3-letter agencies and DC in the moment because of the significance of the targets. And yeah, they asked us if we were okay doing it, and that's what we did. And again, I'm waiting for the reaction, and he goes, that's the coolest shit I've ever heard. That's awesome. And Phil, who's...
Okay, so I may run out of film here, footage, but I just want to show you, you know, these guys are recruited and assessed, and they want to do it, and they're born to do it. All three of those guys are like, all those guys are born to do it, man. You just vibe up and you make it happen, and he's cool, he's young looking, he's not nervous about it, and look what he's been through. Man, what an autograph to have right there. Everybody, know who you are. Peace.